Hey guys, Ryan here. This is going to be my video on the Amax and why I think it's the best mid-range and maybe the best overall AR. Now I have two builds that I run it with. One is with the VLK Sight and one is without. The one without the VLK Sight is more meant for close ranges, and that has a mobility stock and instead of a long barrel, but it has the normal attachments of Commando Foregrip, Monolithic Suppressor, 45 round mags, the mobility stock, and then on the long range build, I have a VLK sight with the Commando Foregrip, Monolithic Suppressor, the long barrel, and 45 round mags. I find that in the mid range and long range, depending on the build, it's dominant. I mean, let's take a look at this time to kill chart. The orange is the Amax, green is FFAR, the purple is the M4, and the kilo is going to be in blue. And as you can see, in almost any situation, this thing is comparable. It competes with every gun, even the FFAR up close. Look at how close that is in the time to chart. And if you look at that damage at long into the mid ranges, it is just straight better than most of the guns. The thing is can you hit those shots with an FFAR at mid range? Yeah, you can if you're good enough, but it's a lot easier to do with an Amax. And I found that up close, the Amax destroys. You're going to see a couple clips with this build in this game that's trying out that also had the sniper, where it just melts kids up close, and I actually really like this build. I didn't think I was going to, and I think it could even have more improvements when you made more close range, but I found that in quads, this good close range, long range combo was really, really good, and ended up doing me pretty well in this game. Alright, so now I want to compare it to the SMGs, because this time to kill chart I think is going to surprise people. The Amax is in purple, the MP5 from Cold War is in blue, MP5 from Modern Warfare is in green, and the orange was the MAC-10. And as you can see, the Amax is better in terms of time to kill than those. Now, there's a couple stats that aren't shown there, in that sprint to fire time and ADS time. And that's why, oh, I forgot to say, I run a Stippled Grip on this, and that's a key attachment to make up for the ADS time. And I believe using slide canceling and pre-aiming is really important to make up for the sprint to fire time. For example, even with the best attachments on my Amax, you're going to have an ADS time that's going to be about 70 to 100 milliseconds slower than any of the SMGs, and your sprint to fire time is going to be bare minimum 60 to 112 milliseconds slower than the SMGs. And your movement speed is obviously going to be a little bit, but if you have the right attachments, it's going to be high up there. So I don't know, you have to consider all of that, but the upside is in the mid-range, you're going to be dominant with this gun. And this is without touching the VLK build. Now I think a VLK Amax with the attachments, Commando Foregrip, Monolithic Suppressor, a long barrel, the 45 round mags, that's my build. Tons of variations, people like different foregrips and all that, but that's mine. I think if you paired that with an SMG, something like the Fennec, the MP5s, the MAC-10, and a personal favorite for me is the AS Val or the FFAR. And I know that's crazy, people don't like running two ARs, but I think the AS Val and the Amax are a combo that will win you almost any 1v1 in almost any situation, and people underestimate how lethal that is. Not going to go too deep into the AS Val now, but the AS Val is the best 1v1 gun in the entire game, aside from like a sniper to the headshot or a shotgun one shot, which is a rarity. But in terms of consistent 1v1, the AS Val is straight up the best in close ranges. And I believe the Amax in mid-range isn't just straight up the best, but it's close. And I feel like for all ranges, the Amax is kind of similar to the AS Val, where if you're in a pickle and you need to win a 1v1 and you're good at isolating 1v1s and setting yourself up, the Amax is going to come out on top the vast majority of the time. And I found running this close range build with the sniper, wow, I felt very little weaknesses in the close range as long as you're aware that you can't be as gung-ho. You have to be a little bit more prepared. You have to take a little bit more precautions so you just don't get caught out sprinting. You know, because if you do that with this Amax, I went over the stats, it's gonna cost you. And that's one of the big things with any of these guns, whatever gun you're using, try and be aware of the weaknesses and the strengths. If you're using an SMG, focus on the fact that up close you're going to win. Don't try and take mid-range and long-range fights. Try and break down the distance. But if you have a kilo in the mid-range, you're going to dominate. Against snipers, 150, 200 meters, you're not going to win. But someone 50, 75 meters out, that kilo is meant for that. That kilo is going to destroy. The kick's going to be so minimal, you're going to dominate. Same thing with the M4 or the Grau. And that's what you have to be aware of here. Now, in all situations, no matter what gun you have, you're not going to have a perfect setup. There isn't one in Warzone, but you can try and mitigate the risk, and you can try and understand where your circles are going to be. Here, One of the reasons why I went this build is because it did seem like this circle is going to end up by quarry. And that's one of the big issues, is in where I die here, I was in a situation where the AMAX and the sniper were good, but I was just in a bad situation, and if I had maybe the VLK Sight AMAX, it would have been better. But there were so many situations where the close range one came up big for me. And now that's the thing. I think that if you want to break down ARs, the FFAR is the best close range AR. Up there with the AS Val, I think the FFAR might be a little stronger in an overall context and why it's so much more relevant in the meta. And the AS Val is very peculiar and has very obvious drawbacks and weaknesses that anyone can talk about right away. And I think for the mid-range, I believe the FFAR is really good, but I think the M4, Ram 7, the AMAX, those are the kind of kings. The Krig's up there, M16, but those are tac rifles, so I don't necessarily consider them ARs. Now, for long range, I do think the AMAX is really good because let's be honest, it is. Look at that damage, just straight up better. But it depends on how far out. I believe that the 50 to 100 meter range is very doable, but it really depends. Especially if you practice and get used to the recoil, it's really not that bad. And that's why I think, it may not be the king at long range, but it's not bad. It's really not that bad at all, and anyone who uses it a lot feels pretty comfortable using it long range. Now, do you want to use it over like the Kilo, even the M4, or the Grau at long range? No, not at all. But I do believe you pair it with, the right setup. You run a VLK AMAX in a circle that's going to be almost all in the mid-range. Dude, you're in the money. You have an MP5 in your back pocket or a really fast-killing SMG or AR, and you have that mid-range beast, you're going to destroy kids. That's all I got to say. I mean, for the most part, this video's got like a minute or so left. You're going to see. Just going to wind out here. I have a coaching video coming up this week, going to be on movement and gunfights. I have another video I have in mind on the RPD, but after using a little more, we'll see how I feel about it. I do think it's actually really good for people who want to use off-meta things, but I think there's better guns right now overall, but I do think it is still phenomenal. And the 120 round mag reloads so fast, it has minimal recoil, it has decent damage. It's just if there was a better barrel that gave it slightly more bullet velocity, or maybe I got to do some more tests, then I really think this gun could shine. Now, you guys don't have to like, you don't have to subscribe, but thank you guys for watching my video, for liking it. I appreciate it. I'm going to start streaming. I just got my Elgato in. I plan on streaming more in the evenings, but we'll see what the schedule is. I just hope I can be consistent, just like I hope I can be consistent with these videos and keep making them. If you guys made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate it. If you have, thank you. As I just said like 3 times. Anyways, I'm about to dip. Peace, guys.
Sad. I sacrificed.
Gas is closing in. Relocating the safe zone.
Fuck, dude.
Enemy UAV over.
I need help. Yeah, I'm dead.
Dude, I'm in such a bad spot.
Wait, no. Wait, can I be revived maybe? Just I don't know actually.